Hello everyone and welcome to SkShadow. Welcome back to another episode of F1 2020 My Team. And this time we are going to the Singapore Grand Prix. As you can see, we've got a few days to be able to plan some activities, so I've planned a few. Most of them just are aiming to give our team and driver a little bit more acclaim and also just boost the morale of our team as well. If we look at the contract, we can see that our upgrade to our personnel has worked. So Lance Stroll is now 88 pace. So hopefully we can see the results of that in the race. And then development-wise, we do have an aerodynamics package coming on Monday the 14th of September, supposedly. And that is a few days before the race, so we should have that going into the race. We do have about 3 mil, so I decided to go for an upgrade on the powertrain for resource points generation. So that will give us a few more resource points, which we can use to develop the car a little bit more.
Major issue on the production line earlier this week, so the entire development package for this weekend has failed.
As you just heard, the aero package that we had ordered has now failed, which is really annoying because that's not going to come now until after the Russian Grand Prix. So it was supposed to come before this race weekend, and now it's not going to come for another 2. So we have no upgrades going into Singapore now. We're in the race weekend. Weather-wise, it is dry in the quali and the race, so no spanners in the works there. And then we do have a retirement announcement. So Roman Grosjean, who is currently in the pink Mercedes, is going to be retiring, so him alongside Kimi. And then overall development, we are still second to last at the moment. Looks like we're creeping towards the Alfa Romeo and Haas a little bit, but still we are miles off of, you know, McLaren, Renault. AlphaTauri is actually all the way up there, surprisingly. So they've developed quite a lot, but still we've got a fair amount of work to do to catch the top of the midfield. But I'll do practice and see you in qualifying. So we are into qualifying now. The ideal result of qualifying would probably be just to try and get into Q2 maybe. I know the car's really not that developed, but in practice I could tell it actually has a really nice flow around this track. I don't know why. It's probably just because it doesn't have many high speed corners, so it doesn't rely hugely on the chassis, which is definitely one of our downfalls in terms of car development. And it's got a few straights like this one and the longer back straight, so it does actually use the engine quite well. So, and that's, you know, one of the bits that we actually have well. But we crossed the line and it is a 137.4, which after skipping forward a little bit actually puts us P12 with our teammate doing a 138.7. So I've just got the difficulty too low, or our teammate is fairly off the pace. I mean, Raikkonen did a 137.8, so I'd say maybe my difficulty was a little bit too low. But skipping forward, Lance Stroll ended up doing a 138.0 in the end, and Raikkonen did a 137.4, so not too far off, but yeah, still our teammate's like 6/10, so certainly not ideal. Yeah, and here you see me putting my difficulty from 100 to 101 for the second session, just to see if that fixes any of the issues there. And this is me on the out lap, getting ready to start our first lap of Q2. And then we just bump over the curb a little bit, lose the back end, and smash into the wall.
What happened? Let me know you're okay.
And you'll see a replay of that now. Here. Yep, smacked into the wall. So, yeah, we didn't even get to do a single run in Q2, so we're going to be bottom of Q2, P16, going into the race.
Here we go then, it's Formula One in Marina Bay once again, and welcome to all of you at home who join us today for this fascinating race around the baking hot, horribly humid, but very beautiful streets of Singapore. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas, The Finn starts from pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Leclerc, Sebastian Vettel, and Albon, Perez, Gasly, Sainz, and Roman Grosjean, Norris, Ocon, George Russell, and Kvyat, the engineer, Raikkonen, Kevin Magnussen, and Daniel Ricciardo. They've taken a grid penalty. Giovinazzi, Stroll, Ireland, and Nicholas Latifi. Now, it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
After the points finish last race, let's aim to keep the momentum going.
So you would have seen on the grid rundown that we actually are P15 because Ricciardo got a penalty. So we start one position higher than we qualified. But strategy-wise, we're going to be going mediums to hards on lap 11. And it's 5 lights out and away we go. Looks like most people get a reasonable start as we jump back onto our onboard and we go around the outside of the Haas of Russell by the looks of it, and then think about going around the outside of these two, Norris and Ocon, but wouldn't have worked. But we have made one position, or two actually so far, up into P13, so we must have taken Raikkonen as well on lap 1, so not too bad so far, using a fair bit of overtake to try and keep up as the Haas of George Russell, I think that is coming over and actually manages to make an overtake look quite easy on us, which is odd because we do have the better engine, so he must have just got a better exit out the corner there. But we do manage to take it back and take Ocon at the same time. So overall, not too bad. We're up to P12 so far, 55 seconds into our first lap, so pretty good. And then going on to this corner here, which is always a little bit tricky because it's completely blind, we actually end up diving a little bit too late, but we then seize the opportunity, use the overtake, and we actually manage to out-traction Lando Norris in the McLaren and make a tiny bit of contact, but squeeze him out, and we do manage to hold on to the position. So up to up to P11 now. So one position out of the points so far, as Sainz loses a little bit of traction there. But yeah, overall, very, very good first lap going from P15 to P11. And obviously we are on the mediums, whereas all the guys ahead, I would assume, are on the softs. So they're going to be quicker overall anyway. As you see, just checking for damage there, just in case we got any on lap 1, but looks like we're all clear.
The gap is less than a second. They're on old softs. Their tyres are 1 lap old. We think they've got 2 stops remaining. The time last lap was at 1 minute 49.3.
So yeah, you just heard Jeff tell us that Sainz actually has 2 stops remaining. Obviously, as you remember from the beginning, we are on a 1 stop going to hards at lap 11. So I'd imagine that if Sainz ahead on the softs is on a 2 stop, then the majority of the guys ahead on the softs are also going to be on 2 stops. And if you watched any of the first few races that we did, where we ended up like 5th and 4th, the only reason we ended up that high is simply because we were on a 1 stop and everyone else was on 2 stops. So if we're able to stay within the DRS range of, you know, Sainz and Grosjean, then we'll be able to stick with the guys ahead, and then when they go in for their stops and then their second stop, we will end up pretty high, maybe, you know, low to mid points would be the most ideal situation. But as we go to the trackside camera here, you see we actually pull exactly the same move on Carlos Sainz as we did on his teammate Lando Norris a couple of laps ago. He's still on our inside there, but we do actually just manage to out-traction, and then we are ahead of Sainz now. So we've got the 2 racing points of Grosjean and Perez up ahead. Within DRS zone of Grosjean, I mean, it's actually looking like we're slightly out of it now, but we might be able to pick up a little bit of DRS on the pit straight. But yeah, the racing point is a much quicker car than us, so I don't think we're going to be catching up. There is a yellow flag for some reason. We have to slam on the brakes there because it was actually Sebastian Vettel in the Ferrari just on the right of us and for some reason Grosjean just slammed on the brakes. Obviously we had to give the position back up though, because you're not allowed to overtake under yellow flags, and we would have got a penalty for that. So we actually smacked the barrier there with our rear wheel, so we're lucky to keep hold of the car there and not actually just smack into what would be the tightest bit of the track. That would certainly not have been ideal. Didn't want a repeat of Q2. As we skip forward to lap 6, a lot of the guys ahead have gone into the pits, so we've come out in P4 now, and we're very, very close to Grosjean here. You can see we're right at the back of his car. We're using all the overtake, all the DRS, all the rich. Obviously we've got the same engine as him, so we have to use all of this to try and get past him. We go for a very, very late dive bomb, make a very small bit of contact, and we do make the overtake work. I don't think there was any damage there, so not too much of an issue, as we cross the line in P1 actually, because the two guys ahead have gone into the pits for their first pit stop. So for the second race in a row we are actually leading. I don't think we'll stay P1 for very long, because obviously we've got to go into the pits at lap 11, and then all the other guys are going to be much quicker than us on, you know, brand new mediums and softs or whatever they're going on. So, but it is quite nice to just be in the front.
You'll be on the hards.
We've been using the clean air to our advantage, because we have made up a 5 and a bit second gap to Ocon behind. He is running a bit of a train with Russell, Kvyat and Giovinazzi there, so they're probably losing a fair bit of time fighting each other. So in this clean air, with nobody around us, we're able to just pump out the lap times and make a very nice gap, which should hopefully clear us to be able to make a really good points finish, hopefully.
The grip levels to start falling away soon.
As you hear Jeff telling us he thinks the grip levels are going to fall away soon. I'm not feeling it too much. The tyres are still working quite well for us. Obviously we've got one more lap until we go into the pits anyway, but we are 7.6 seconds ahead of Ocon now. Singapore overall is just a really nice track to drive. It's very difficult, requires a lot of concentration. Like you take your eye off the ball and you're in a wall or missing a braking point, but when you do get the flow, it's a really, really nice track. And it's actually quite sad that
In this lap,
you know, in the real life season for 2021, it looks like we might not actually have any of the street circuits like Baku, Singapore, Canada, and they're all really, really good circuits, so it is a real big shame that we might not have those. But end of lap 11, we are diving into the pits. Got to get it slowed down enough, we do, and then into the pits we go, and our team pull a 1.9 second stop. So that's, I think, the quickest we've had so far. That's sort of Red Bull levels there. But feeding out, where do we end up? Getting overtaken by a couple of people. And we dive across, almost make contact with the racing point of Grosjean. But we use a little bit of overtake to make sure we stay ahead, and we feed out in P17. So ahead of Grosjean and ahead of Raikkonen. So overall, we haven't actually lost out on any positions, which is good. We've got Ricciardo and Sainz ahead. Obviously they have gone in for their first stop, I think, so they started on soft, so they're all going to be stopping again. So once again, if we're able to stay ahead, then that'll be great, although we do see that Ricciardo locks up a little bit, and we seize the opportunity and go around the outside of him and easily get the move done there. So we now have Sainz ahead, who is about 0.8 seconds ahead, so we will have DRS as we do, and he's trying to go for an overtake on Latifi, and they're really, really slow, so we go all the way around the inside and actually manage to almost make the move, and you see Sainz just smacks into Latifi there, ends up pivoting us sideways a little bit, and I think Sainz lost a fair amount of his front wing, but doesn't really matter to us because we are ahead of him. And then we're using the rich and the overtake and the DRS all together, and it makes us be able to make a move on Latifi and move up to P8. Ahead we've got Albon and Perez, who are about 5-6 seconds ahead now. But that's not too much of an issue, because again they've got to go into the pits, which I think they're going to do at the end of this lap. And obviously we're move on to lap 14 now, and we've already made up a 3-second gap on Sainz, 8-second now. So he's definitely a lot slower with this broken front wing of his, which is holding behind everyone else for us as well, which is fantastic. A few of the guys ahead have gone into pits, so we are now P3. Both Leclerc and Hamilton are due to pit again. And the pit stop here, I think, is like 22, 25 seconds-ish. So if they pit anytime soon, we're actually going to be P1 again when they come out. So we'll be leading the race for the second time in this race. As you see, our gap to Sainz is now 7.5 seconds. And he's definitely holding up the pack behind him. I don't know if you can see it up on the map, but he's got a huge amount of cars behind him. I don't know why he hasn't gone into the pits for a new front wing if he's that slow. Maybe the engineers decided it's quicker to just stay out, but I don't know why. But as we cross the line for lap 20, Hamilton is in the pits, and as we pass the pit exit, we are P1 as our teammate goes into pits, but we are P1 for the second time in this race. You've got Leclerc and Hamilton are behind us, about 8 to 9 seconds, so they're on mediums and they're much faster cars, so I don't think it'll be long until they are trying to go for overtakes on us. But behind them are Magnussen in the Haas on mediums. I don't know if that's his last set of tyres or if he's got to stop, but behind him is our arch nemesis Ocon on the hards, about 11.5 seconds behind. Now there's only 11 laps left, and I don't think we're 1 second off the pace on Magnussen and Ocon. So we could be in for another podium. And as we cross the line for lap 22, you see Leclerc is now 1.7 seconds behind with the fastest lap. So he's definitely catching up very, very quickly. But behind Hamilton is Ocon, 12.5 seconds. So Magnussen must have had to go into the pits, but you can see we're actually gaining time on 4th and 5th there. So yeah, as long as we can keep this pace up, we are pretty much set for a podium. Where? I don't know, probably going to be P3. The second podium in just as many races would be a very, very good result for us. As we go into this corner here, and you can see Leclerc is now within DRS zone of us already. So it didn't take him long, and then you're going to have Hamilton trying to come at us at the same time probably. So as we go on to the final corner, Leclerc goes around our outside, forces us to go wide a little bit, and he does make the move quite easily. We go defensive on Hamilton, but he goes all the way on our inside, just about sticking to track limits, and he does get ahead of us. As you see, a little warning there saying that our DRS flap is broken, so we can't open it, which isn't too much of an issue. I mean, we would have had DRS going into this DRS zone here, because Hamilton's still 0.8 ahead.
No need to worry about tyre conditions
but
now.
they're going to pull away really quickly, and we've got no one else we're fighting. So, to be honest, it's really not that big of an issue that our DRS wing is not going to open. Slightly annoying that we've had it so many times now. I can't really count how many. I think it's like 3 or 4 in, 12 races. So, that is crazy, considering in my team and my careers, I've never actually had that before. But we're fast forwarding a little bit here onto lap 30, and not a huge amount happened. As you can see, Hamilton and Leclerc pulled away to about 20 seconds now. So they really, really did have a huge amount of pace compared to us. But behind us, you've got Ocon and Kvyat, and they are, well, still 10.5 seconds behind. So they didn't catch up at all. Rounding the last corner here, we cross the line in P3. So yeah, that is a second podium for us in 2 races, which is just insane. Certainly wasn't expecting that coming into this race weekend. And we get driver of the day, which I'm not surprised, because we did pretty well there. As you see us on the podium, this time with Hamilton and Leclerc rather than Hamilton and Bottas. And yeah, there we go. P3, another 15 points for us, which is fantastic. This time, if you look at our best lap time, we did a 142.7, and there's a fair few people in the top 14 that did 142s or even 143s. So this time, we're not that far off, but you can see that the one stop did really well. Like Ocon, Kvyat, Giovinazzi, they all did one stops and started way, way behind where they finished. So the one stop was definitely the strategy to go for in this race, and it certainly did help us there. as we have a look and see our teammate finished P18, started P20, but he did do 2 stops. And we know the 2 stop was quite slow, so not really a terrible result, but we're P6 and P6 in the Drivers and the Constructors Championship. So overall, a very good result for us. But yeah, other than that, that is it for this race. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that fantastic action. Hit the bell notification button so you know when we next upload an F1 video. If you like FIFA, Adam's also doing a series on that, and we also do live streams of other games like Call of Duty and Among Us. But yeah, other than that, that is it from me. Good night.